The Liberty Report.
Well, hello, America. Welcome to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report. As everybody knows, today's Monday, July 6th, 2015. It's 8 o'clock on the East Coast. That means it's 5 on the Pacific Coast, and we're reporting live from the studios of PRN Radio Network. That's the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program, by the way. Hello, Watchmen. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me, and we appreciate you tuning in, too. Our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and, of course, right here at our home site, PRN Radio Network, are open for you. A few of our wonderful colleagues, Lynn, AstroTurf, and Famous Anna, are in the chats putting links, articles, sources, and documents in there so you have them available to you. And thank you for that nice courtesy, my friends. Our colleagues are way more than people in chat rooms. They're the best researchers, journalists, and analysts I've ever met. So please say hi to them when you get into the chats. Another of our colleagues might be in there. Her name is Color Me Red, and it's her birthday today, so happy birthday, Red. Let's see. Today we have a lot of news to share, and we have a lot of analysis to get to. We even have a special guest tonight. Carol Ray said she'll come by and do a short segment on what's going on in Greece and what that means to you. She'll be here second hour. And before we begin, I have to first do our short disclaimer like we do every week, and that's just to let everybody know that what's said on this show is my responsibility and not that of our wonderful hosts and sponsors. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers and people in the chat rooms of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, or anything else of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, whether it be past, present, and even future broadcasts. This show is probably rated about PG-13, too. Like I tell you every week, we don't really hardcore cuss or anything like that, but some info might be over the kids' heads, so you know your kids. You handle it. All right, let me open up Scott's microphone here. Say hello to him, give him a proper welcome, and then we'll start the show. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Joanne, how you doing tonight?
Good, my friend. How was your weekend? Did you have a good 4th of July?
Oh, yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. I had a great time. I did. I had family and friends around, and then they all went to watch the fireworks, and I stayed here and watched the live stream of the Boston Pops Orchestra and all the fireworks over the Esplanade. Boston put on a hell of a show. Way to go, Boston. I don't know about the rest of the world, but Boston did it up right. It just wouldn't be the 4th of July unless my spirit was in Boston, I think. So, how about you? What did you do for the holiday?
Not much. Just watch some people celebrating Independence Day of a tyrannical government.
Oh.
You know, just basically the opposite of what the holiday stands for. I don't know. Every time I saw those fireworks going off, I saw our freedoms going up in flames.
You think so? I think maybe I think we have an opportunity to make some changes if we do it right. I see that there's, even just with Donald Trump, somebody's fighting back. Of all people, it's Donald Trump, but somebody's fighting back.
Not. You know what he is? He's a distraction. He's to be a clown during the primaries, blah, 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 and Bush and all these ones will attack him. Who knows? And even if he got the nomination, or which he never would by the GOP, he just sucked half of the Republican side votes for their imaginary election, so they could justify Hillary Clinton and say, well, you know what? He split the vote just like Ross Perot. Welcome, President Clinton.
These establishment people are not really very good at winning elections either, so I'm not really sure I'll take their opinion. But I got to tell you, I love the guts that Trump is showing. It's too bad it's Trump, but if it's Trump, so be it. What can I say? Everything he's talking about should be said.
Yeah, but isn't it something that people are calling guts someone who's just telling the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of them just won't tell the truth. They're a bunch of establishment pussies that jump through the hoops They want to impress the people that really put him in charge, which is Council of Foreign Relations, Henry Kissinger. You know, I think his last name's Kissinger because they're always Kissinger in his ass.
Well, we're going to get to more on Trump in a little while during this show, but I got to tell you, you know, I mean, it's refreshing. All we've ever heard for the last 7 years is race and gender and gender and race and race and gender and gender and race. It's such a steady diet of it. I just want to gag if I even, you know, I don't even want to see anything about it. If I never see another report on gender or race, I'm not going to miss it.
It's all man-made news, you know. It's like the weather.
Yeah, well,
the news is like the weather, except it's man-made, you know.
We got crises going on all over the place, and we took our eye off of it for something none of us have any control over. Which one of us has any control over race or gender? But man, can we fight about it? You know what I mean? You know, nobody alive was a slave or had one.
Look over here. You know, I mean, you know, for 36 years we watched the Dukes of Hazzard on TV, and all of a sudden that flag's racist now because the liberals are telling us that because one guy allegedly that committed a crime was holding up a flag. You know how many criminals are running around with Obama 2012 T-shirts on?
Yeah, no
ban
kidding.
that symbol. Okay, that's the most racist symbol I know of.
Yeah. Then we got a guy in Ohio who was busted for a hate crime because he got drunk and lit up a gay flag, rainbow flag. They said it was a hate crime. Are you kidding me?
In Nebraska?
I think, Omaha.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, a race crime.
Good
you
for him.
burn a flag, but you got a whole bunch of people in New York who can burn American flags, and you can burn Confederate flags, but you can't burn a rainbow flag. Give me a break, all right?
Yeah, that's different. You see?
Yeah,
you know that is.
Crime.
You know, it's just like Christians. You can make fun of them all day. You could destroy their religion. You can ban them from school. You can get rid of their monuments in court. But boy, you know what? If it's Islam, we're gonna bus your little girl to a mosque for a field trip without your knowledge. We're gonna do whatever. We're gonna let them pray to Allah.
Yeah,
we're
and if
say
you
the
say
Pledge
anything,
of Allegiance to Allah in class.
Yeah, and if you say anything against that, then you're some sort of a phobe.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sick of the Christophobes.
Islamophobe.
Yeah, well, I'm sick of the Christophobes,
you know.
too. Obama was on TV today. I know you're absolutely shocked about that, seeing that he's on TV every day. They might as well just give him his own show. At least we know what time the show will be on, and we can change the channel or plan something else. But he's erratic, and he's on every day, sometimes in the morning, the afternoon, the evenings. You don't even know when you got to avoid TV. I shut it off now. I don't even want to give him Nielsen ratings. But, of course, it's all over Twitter and all over Facebook. And he was talking about ISIS and how this is a long-term campaign. You know what else he said, Scott? He said, ideology is not defeated by guns, but by ideas. So, does he recommend that, you know, when ISIS comes to call him with their suicide vests and their mission to behead people, that we should just say, no, man, you got the wrong idea. Yeah, I got a better idea. They're not going to listen to your ideas. That's, you know, you're going to talk them out of the Koran. It's not going to happen. You're not going to talk anybody out of their religion.
Well, look what Dianne Feinstein said. She says, criminals will just give up their guns if they know you don't have one because it's human nature. I mean, can you believe she uttered that?
Well, everybody in Chicago gave up their guns and
they know it's all just, you know, propaganda, lie, tell it big enough and often, and yes, we can. You'll believe it. The last time I saw Obama on TV was during the third Romney debate. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, he was cocky then. Get the transcript, crowd. Candy, get the transcript.
Yeah, you know what, and that just shows how fixed these elections are, because Romney smoked him that second, made him look like just a complete idiot, stoned out, zoned out, uninterested fool that he is. Knew he was getting in anyway, so he could have shown up in a tutu and a clown hat. And here Romney had a slam dunk, go in there, just pin Benghazi and all that crap on him, and just make him look like just a complete ignoramus,
Yeah,
and
dope.
he just put, here you go, you know.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like going to a boxing match and watching a boxer just fall on the ground and for the 10 count, and he wasn't even hit.
I bet you all of our listeners can imagine the looks and the responses from us and our listeners, of course, when we watched that go down. I was flipping. I was like, Ronnie, tell him. No, man, tell him. Tell him you're looking at paragraph 4. Look at paragraph 10. He didn't even say the word terrorist. And he was talking about religion and how you shouldn't aggravate people over it. Get the transcript, Candy.
only Christians can't cling to their gun and their religion, but Muslims, hey, that's all they do over there.
You know what I like? I like when they say that only the cops and military should have guns. And then they tell me, the cops are brutal and the military's baby killers. Then why do you want just them to have guns? They don't even know what they want, Scott. They don't even know what they want.
Just another lie to get them away from you. And, they want us all to be...
See? They're not really anti-gun, are they? They're anti-gun for you, but they have no intention on giving up their guns. And they want the police and the military, which is the government structure, to be the only ones that have guns. But then they'll turn around and tell you they don't trust them. So then what do you want? You're making me dizzy.
They do that on purpose to make us dizzy. It's just hypocrite. Just, say one thing, do another. Okay for me, not for you. It's just total ridiculousness.
Yeah. Anyhow, Obama went on, right? He says, well, this isn't going to be quick. It's going to be a long-term campaign. And then he bragged about 5,000 airstrikes. We were running 1,200 sorties a day. Okay? And now he's got a total of 5,000 airstrikes since he became whatever the hell they're calling him, king, president, whatever. But 5,000 airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq, Syria, and new regions like North Africa, and the efforts of a galvanized Iraqi government in the wake of the fall of Ramadi as signs of stepped-up efforts. If there was a stepped-up effort, how did Ramadi fall? And why are we sharing a base with Iranian National Guard? Not only are we sharing a base with Iranian National Guard, but Suleiman is giving the orders. So now our military over there in Iraq is under the command of an Iranian general. That make sense to anybody?
Yeah, it does. Hagel has cut the military. That's why he was put in there, and then he left after he got it all done. Cut them down to the bone. So now you're being told what to do by Iranians at military bases. You've got to beg for other countries to let the Marines get on aircraft carriers because we don't have enough anymore. It's all to cut America down to size so they can have a global military for the NWO.
Yeah. Well, he even says, he says, the fight against ISIS is a generational struggle. So this is going to be for generations. That's how long we're going to be fighting them. He says it depends on Muslim communities, including scholars and clerics. They don't let people go to school. What scholars and clerics? And they want them to reject a warped interpretation. How are you going to reject it when you're being slaughtered by those who are not rejecting it? Those who will absolutely refuse to reject it. And they're growing. They've taken over so much more of Yemen, Iraq, Syria. They're knocking on the door of Bahrain and Tunisia, and even the Saudis are scared. The Turks are scared. The Egyptians. There's stuff going off in Gaza and the Egyptian Sinai. Israel's a wreck. But Obama, it's going to be generational, and we're going to have to change hearts and minds. He's been there 7 years. He hasn't changed anybody's mind.
He knows because they created him. I mean, they created the Frankenstein monster. Now they got to tell you, hey, we need some more of your rights and your money if you want us to protect us from the Frankenstein monster we created.
Mhm.
But Fox News won't even ask John McCain, hey, how come you were standing there with al-Baghdadi and all those creeps, over there right before ISIS was created? How come you did that?
Mhm.
They don't even ask him.
Yeah, and all the whole base here is Iran. And they're trying to put back that Ottoman Empire, the Persians and all that. And Obama's handing it to them. Not only is he handing it to them, but he has handed them 30 tons of gold. He has lifted sanctions. And he doesn't even have the authority to do that, but he's got it all wrapped in these Iran talks. Now, he wants to make this Islamic Republic into an accepted, normalized, successful regional power, right? Well, he decided to take over the nuclear negotiations when he took a crate from the Pentagon, as a matter of fact. But Tehran was reeling. The sanctions we had put on them had them really in dire straits. So instead of continuing with that and getting somewhere, anywhere, he lifts the sanctions. He gives them back the gold. He gives them every single thing they want. They have command in Iraq. They got all kinds of area in Iraq that was won with American blood, sweat, and treasure. Many lives were lost over this. He walks out and leaves the vacuum for Iran, which damn well was intentional, because he's been in these talks. Denise wrote an article about it. He's been in these talks since 2007. He was sending messages with his little commie cronies through Venezuela to Iran, through Cuba to Iran, telling them, just, help me out here and I'll make sure you get whatever you want and, just stick with me. So not only did he have the Iranians on his side, and they've been jerking him. Every time he says, okay, well, we want to look at the nuclear facilities, you can't look at them. We want unfettered access to the ballistic sites. No, you can't look at them either. Okay, well, what can we look at? Nothing. All right, fine. They were supposed to be everywhere anytime for inspections, unimpeded, and now it's a total cave. Unfettered access has become managed access. Nuclear inspectors will have to negotiate and receive Iranian approval for their inspections. Yeah, how much good is that going to do? And another thing, too, sanction reliefs. Those were supposed to be gradual and staged, like I just talked about. Well, it has to, they were contingent on the International Atomic Energy Agency certifying that they were in compliance. Well, now we're going to be releasing $150 billion as an upfront signing bonus. That's 25 times the annual budget of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So they're completely out of debt now, just with the sanctions and the gold. And the gold was stored in South Africa. Why wasn't it stored here? So here's your Iranian deal. What deal? There is no deal. John Kerry, he wants his peace prize. And Obama, he wants his legacy. They don't give a damn. They're all done in 17 months. So this is all about them.
Just the fact that someone's saying legacy when you have destroyed this country, emboldened the enemy, created new evil groups to take over the planet, usurped the entire system, shredded the Constitution. Legacy. Yeah, well, you know what? You got Hitler's legacy. It's going to be Hitler's legacy because the time he gets done with this, we're going to make the Third Reich look like a trip to Disneyland.
Oh, they already do. Look at they're killing off the Kurds. They're killing off the Peshmergas. They're killing off each other. They're killing off Christians left and right. The Jews don't have a chance. And here's Obama's legacy. You're right. But I'll tell you what, the left doesn't think these are a bad thing. They hate Israel. They don't give a damn about the Middle East. None of them could point it out on a map. As long as Obama's doing it, it's okay. They think the economy is going just great because we have a 5% unemployment rate. Anybody believe a 5% unemployment rate, by the way? We only have 62%
45%
of the
maybe.
Yeah, well, if you got 62% of the people in the workforce instead of 100%, that means you got a 38% unemployment, not 5%. When they drop out, if they've been on unemployment for 6 months or more, they're no longer counted. When you expire your benefits, you are no longer counted. If you've been out of work just more than 6 months, even if you have not collected unemployment, you're not counted. So you're looking at a 38% unemployment rate. And that's an overall unemployment rate. Different sections, different factions in different areas of the country. Some are higher, some are lower, but that's the median, 38%. Just do the math.
Yeah, and the people that do have jobs, they either gave them to illegal aliens or they're normal people that has to have 3 part-time jobs just to make what they used to make at their normal job that they lost.
That's a good point, too, because they count 2 part-time jobs as 2 full-time jobs, too. So if you're working part-time, then you're still working full-time. And if you got 2 jobs, they'll consider that overtime. So then you're doing better. In the meantime, you're only working 30 hours a week at 2 jobs because of Obamacare. God forgive me about Obamacare, but boy, I just see this getting so much worse that they're going to increase the rates for your insurance, and plus they just got a bailout too. I don't know if anybody knew that, but Friday, AIG got a huge bailout, and one other one too, one other insurance company. Anyhow, hey, you know who's supporting this Iran thing, and you know who's been pushing Obama and pushing all these leftist philanthropy groups, like the Center for American Progress? The Rockefeller Foundation.
Oh, wow, what a surprise.
Yep, the Rockefeller Fund spent millions to make the Iran deal happen. It's from Dan Greenfield. He says behind every act of appeasement is a whole lot of dirty money and political influence, and some of the usual sources make their appearance here. That advocating for Iran truce is a loose coalition of peace groups, think tanks, and former high-ranking U.S. diplomats, bound together by millions of dollars given by the Rockefeller family through its $870 million Rockefeller Brothers Fund. It says they began this in late 2001 after the September 11th attacks.
Do you see the connection to George Soros now? They're all part of the Bilderberger. They're all part of the, secret societies. I mean, they're all just one big crime family.
Yeah, well, and they're hiding it, too. It says here that the State Department official says the administration welcomes back-channel efforts like the Iran project because it proves useful both to have knowledgeable former officials and country experts engaging with their counterparts, and, more accurately, it allows state to have plausible deniability when their own people on private payrolls conduct their diplomacy. So that tells you, when you got people like Sid Blumenthal and what's that other guy's name, Rummeller there, the CIA guy, when they're running around doing all these foreign deals and foreign diplomacy and everything, and it's off the radar because it's not done through our regular government channels where there is archives of the, emails and communications and stuff. They're doing this all behind our back. There is so much money flowing. And I don't know how people get so brainwashed that they think these things are good. If you look at any one of the news reports and you say to them, you say to anybody, why would you vote for Hillary? The only thing they can come up with is she's a woman. Not one of them know one damn thing of all these back-channel dealings and kickbacks and monies and, the pay-to-play, and you got to make a big donation to the Clinton Foundation before you can even get an audience or talk to anybody in our government. You got to put money in the Clintons' fist. And that goes for anything, whether it's state or federal government. If you need something done or if you have to talk to somebody, you better have a pile of money so you can grease these politicians. They wouldn't give you a straw hat in a blizzard. And there you go. Money talks and BS walks. Especially with this Iran talks. You see the kind of money that's going on? Iran is completely out of debt. And, we're giving them an option. You can be in debt and build your bomb, or we'll give you a whole bunch of money and you can build your bomb. That's our choice for you. Give me the money. Iran would be stupid not to take this deal. And I'm sorry, but the truth isn't always pretty. Iran would be stupid not to take the deal. And we're stupid for allowing it to go down. And our politicians, where are they? We always say, well, the Republicans should stop the Democrats. Hasn't it once crossed your mind that the Democrats shouldn't even be doing this stuff, that they would need to be stopped? It's like Scott says, there is no two parties. These people are getting money from the same thing. You think the Rockefellers are just spending money on Democrats? No. They're spending money on Republicans, too. The same with Soros. He spends a lot of money on Democrats, but there's a few of them out there with their tin cups taking money from him.
Who created the rhino? The Rockefellers. That's who. That's what I mean. Everything is a puppet show, and you think, it's Redskins versus the Cowboys when they're all owned by the same NFL. You know, but one, you got a bunch of people on one side screaming for them, and the owners in the NFL are just laughing because it's like, look at these idiots. They actually care about this crap.
Yeah. And then you go to ask them a question, and they'll say, well, we're not going to be talking about that. So why bother even having a press conference?
And so this duality thing works. You put Pepsi against Coke. You put IBM against Apple. You have the Soros clan and the Rockefellers. Even though they pretend like they're on, the opposite side, they're still working for the same team.
Yes.
And that's the world government team.
And it's going down as we speak. We're going to prove that tonight, too.
Oh, big time. I mean, now it's in everybody's face. They come right out and admit it. And
we used to think
called the tin hat wearer 10, 20 years ago, or even, even 10 years ago, are all going, wow, I can't believe it. You were right.
Yeah. 10 years ago, they would call you a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. Nah, there's no world government. Nah, there's no plan to build a caliphate in the Middle East. Nah, everybody's on the up and up. Soros is a great guy. And the conspiracy theorists would say, no, man, really, there is an operation. They do want a world government. The banks are joining together. Look at the mergers. Look at the fact that the U.S. has their military under foreign command. The UN, during that Libya thing, it was the UN that was commanding them. Our army was under command of a German general. Remember that?
Yep.
So, when you say, it's a conspiracy theorist, well, that's a cheap cop-out, and that's just a lazy way of saying I really don't want to think about this. Because if I think about it, they might be right. We were given a warning
in 1991 or whatever, on 9/11, George H.W. Bush, a new world order. It's a big idea. I mean, come on, When
in 1979.
When the President of the United States says that at the United Nations on 9/11, I think the conspiracy thing's sort of passé.
Yeah, well, in 1979 on the TV show Bonnie Miller, written by Norman Lear.
Right. Remember that.
They put it out there. They told you it's the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and it's this plan to do a world government and to centralize all the banks under one. And everybody laughed at him, and they laughed at him getting arrested and put in a crazy house.
Yep, said he was a kook. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, guess what? He was right. That's another Solowitsky tactic, you see. It's like, people could get smart to this, so what you got to do is you got to make a joke out of it. So it looks like it's just all funny and they're nuts. It's like Obama, gets up there and, it's great being a U.S. citizen, wink, wink, since I was, born here and everything, wink, wink. I mean, because he knows he isn't. At least, I'll say that for Trump. At least Trump got on Fox News and actually said it on Fox News, and he was the only one that got away with it, because every time Sheriff Joe was on there, they said, don't mention the birth certificate.
Yeah, and they called him a crazy uncle. That's the same thing they said about Jeremiah Wright, who's far from crazy. And it's the same thing that
Well, he is
Obama
great.
tried to say the other day about Scott Walker. Oh, yeah, he's like the crazy uncle, nobody listens to him, but we just, we're nice to him at the table. So that was Alinsky. There was beautiful Alinsky going on, man. With that Confederate flag, I got to tell you, if I was a leftist, I would be ecstatic at how wonderful that went. That Confederate flag operation. Now, for how many years has that flag been flying all over the place, right? And it was on TV, and it was everywhere, and it's a piece of Southern pride. It's not about slavery. And anybody who buys that hype hasn't looked it up. But, they wanted to make it about slavery. Yeah, it's a icon from the day when there was slavery. So now they were able to label half the country as racist in one fell swoop. And they put that theater on. I mean, they even hired professional riggers to get that chick up on that flagpole. They hired professional videographers. They had money up the wazoo. D-Ray was there. Bree was there. Bree was on the rigging. And they tried to make it look like she snuck up in the middle of the night and shimmied up that pole, and she's a hero, and she took that flag down. That didn't happen. It was a whole theater production. So there you have it. I'm going to tell you about more theater production, too, in a few minutes. But still, Scott is absolutely right. It's all theater. It's like a real-life Truman Show. I don't know if y'all saw the movie The Truman Show. But it's about this guy who his entire life is a stage. It's a theater stage. He doesn't even know that he's on stage. He's a reality show figure. And he doesn't even know it.
And they tell you in movies and TV things that is really happening. But, it just sounds too crazy, so they just make it into like a movie or a TV show, so you think it's fiction, when it really isn't. We are all the Truman Show, you see.
Yeah, well,
we're
I'm
all
thinking
being watched 24/7. They know every single thing you do, say. They won't know more about you than your own parents did.
Yeah, they do. And, I'm sure people that are listening are saying, yeah, these people on the radio, they're crazy. But we can prove every word. You just got to, and you can see it yourself if you're just willing to look. All right, let's move on a little bit because we're going to come back to some of this. South Carolina saw its 8th shark attack. Now, I don't know if everybody's been paying attention to all these sharks swimming closer to shore. Just before we come on the air, there was a whole school of them that were photographed up at Panama City. That's in the Gulf region of Florida. And South Carolina, that, of course, is the Atlantic. And over on the West Coast, you have all these, not just sharks, but you have red crabs all coming up on the shore, and the sea lions won't even go in the water. And you got these purple slugs that are crawling up on the beaches, too. I have a theory about that, and this is only a theory. As you know, we've been under high alert. And I'm wondering if there aren't submarines off our coast that are causing these animals to move away from them, whether it be closer to shore or further out to sea, to get away from these subs. The sonar bothers them and screws up their GPS. So I'm wondering if that isn't what's causing all these sharks to come so close to shore. Sharks, of course, migrate. They're born in the Gulf of Mexico, and they swim around the Strait of Florida, and they go up the Atlantic Ocean all the way up to Nova Scotia by this time of year. So it's a natural migratory route, but they never come that close to shore. You have 1 or 2 shark attacks a year, but now they're everywhere. So I'm thinking that it's probably submarines out there. Hopefully there are submarines.
God only knows. That and probably the water is so polluted with radiation and chemicals. God only knows what else.
Maybe on the West Coast, but on the East Coast the water's pretty clean. And in the Gulf it seems to be pretty clean too. But you're right, who knows? There could be anything in there.
Who knows?
Hey, let's talk about Black Lives Matter for a minute, because 70 people were shot. 85 people were actually injured. 47 were killed, not all by gunfire, by the way, in Chicago. That was just since Thursday. Now, if these lives matter so much, why is this going on? You know, that sounds to me like pure genocide. When you're killing off 100 people in a weekend, almost. You know, that's pretty serious, and that's every weekend. There's 52 weeks in a year. So, I mean, at the end of the year, if they don't have 3,000 deaths, I'm going to be shocked. That's a lot of people to die just in one city.
They use cities like that as a test. You know, people ignore it. You know, it doesn't get reported on because, you know, they already have strict gun laws, so you can't take too much more of that away. So you just divert the attention to something else, like a Confederate flag or gay marriage or some other nonsense that has absolutely no effect on our future.
Yeah, well, between the Margaret Sangers and the abortion clinic on all the corners in the city and poor areas, the people killing each other, and they're saying, oh, yeah, it's guns. Well, one 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death, so it's not guns, folks, it's attitude. It's people that kill people. The gun didn't do it, the knife didn't do it, the hammer didn't do it, because it was a hammer murder, too. It's attitude that does it. But they're going to blame the guns, and that only takes guns away from you. They never tell you how they're going to take guns away from criminals. They're only going to take the guns away from the people who will actually obey a law. Now, we already have rules that say don't murder anybody. So, you know, how many more laws do you need? That's pretty cut and dry right there. Doesn't matter the method, does it? You can murder somebody with a chair or a rock. You can hold them underwater, you know. That's just, so how are you going to lose your gun? If you didn't do it, don't get blamed for it. If you weren't in Chicago shooting people, then it isn't your fault. And it's not your gun's fault, all right? So stop taking this guilt that isn't yours. Got it? You know, the genocide is just too much. I'm thinking, you know, they got no jobs up there. Chicago's in a slump. They're taking people's pensions now. They've already done that. So what are they going to do with all these people? No one wants to come in and move into those areas. No one wants to invest in those areas. So they just let them kill each other off. You know, there's no reconciliation going on there. There's no anything going on. If it was something that they could use, all right, they got 70 people shot. If one of those people were shot by a cop or a white person, okay, then they'd have a problem with it. The other 69 doesn't matter, right? They're just black people killing black people. And they're all young people, too. You know, the median age is 28. That's the median age of the people that are getting killed.
Everything in the news is to push their agenda, or it isn't important.
I got one of my neighbors decides to light off fireworks 2 days late. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I do.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not in Chicago. It's real fireworks. Speaking of that, up in Milwaukee, a firefighter was shot. All right? He was working on an ambulance, and somebody wasn't breathing. So they go racing in there. They get the person on the stretcher, and they're taking them out. Somebody's shooting at the ambulance. I mean, guys, why the heck would you shoot an ambulance? Taking out somebody who can't breathe. They're going to take him to a hospital and try to save him, and you're going to shoot him? The firefighter got grazed in the head. Several rounds struck the ambulance.
People have nothing is sacred to these people. Nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't even know the sense in that.
Because they can't.
You know, the lady next door can't breathe and somebody calls an ambulance, and then you're going to shoot at them?
Because they can. There is no reason. It's just because they can, and they don't care.
Yeah, it's under investigation. Nobody was arrested.
Of course not. You know, he probably wasn't white, so, you know, probably an illegal alien or a black guy, so, hey, let him go.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you right now, we're absolutely crazy for putting up with this. White people, black people, you know, none of us controls race agenda, so it's time we get off that pity party right away, because nothing is getting fixed. All we're doing is going deeper and deeper in a hole. The hate, the anger, the mistrust. You know, how on earth are we going to fix it? You know, we're going to say, okay, all you black people either kill yourselves or fix it. You know, why don't we say, you know, we could help if you're interested. And the same thing with the white community or the Asian community or the Hispanic community. We could fix it, but not if we're going to be killing each other. You know, when you're killing off 100 people in a weekend in one city, and that's just Chicago. We didn't even bring up Baltimore or Cincinnati or Detroit, and there were murders all over there too. There was even 4 murders in Boston. So, what is going on, folks? Stop it. Plus, we had Russian bombers on the 4th of July. Russian bombers in Alaska and California, 13 miles off the coast. Can you imagine that? What the hell were they doing there? And then NORAD wouldn't even tell us if they were armed or not.
No, of course not. Remember when he said he was going to be more flexible once after the election because he knew he was going to win? Well, he's more flexible. He's letting Russia just do whatever they want, basically, while pretending he's against them. He's arming Iran, going against one of his 1,000 election promises that he went against, and they are Russian allies. He's very flexible. He just bends over and takes it up the wazoo by anybody else that would any country that hates our guts.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were escorted, but they weren't intercepted. They took off on their own. You do know that they have flyover authority, right, in the United States? And the Saudis do, too. We granted them flyover authority. As part of our reset.
That's why I saw no sense in celebrating the 4th of July. What for? I mean, I'll celebrate a tradition when it actually has some meaning behind it again. But until then, I just feel like a hypocrite. It's like, it makes me sick.
Yeah, it makes me sick too. Let's go back to this here.
I mean, look at this. Independence Day. It was created as a celebration of our independence from a tyrannical piece of crap. King and all this. And what are we doing? We're under tyranny, and over 50% of the population is dependent on the government. Who's independent?
Yeah, independent from what? Our rights and privileges are being stripped systematically by all 3 branches, and we're not able to pull it together enough to fight this. I mean, when you got the White House saying that they're not going to comment on that San Francisco murder, how long have we been talking about this illegal immigration? Since Bush's first term, right? Actually, no, since Carter. 1979, Carter was president, and the first sanctuary city, Los Angeles, came into play, and it was approved of. And that was during Carter. And then we've talked about it through Clinton and Bush and Obama. And we're talking over 20 years. Still nothing has come of it. And then,
Bush.
Ronald Reagan gave them amnesty with the promise that there was going to be border security. And that part never happened. They got the amnesty. But
Bush
the border security never happened.
Bush was one of the most open border rhinos when he was the governor in Texas ever. And he sided with the UN every time. People were complaining about it and bitching about it, and the UN were saying, "Hey, quit saying illegals can't come to the United States, you racist bastards." And he sided with the UN.
Well, the UN doesn't say anything to Mexico. You try getting across Mexico's border. Look at that Marine sergeant. You try entering Mexico illegally, and you get caught with that. Try coming over the southern border. Even worse, they'll put you in a prison as quick as, they'll kill you. So, at least we could upgrade to their standards.
That's right.
If Mexico's got a problem with our standards, then why don't we adopt theirs? And another thing, too, is we keep giving money to these countries. Okay? We have a slush fund we have an immigration slush fund, and Denise wrote about that too. And it's $1.3 billion that Obama has to just spend on these illegals. So, that kind of money, don't you think we could clean up Honduras or El Salvador or Guatemala? And it's not just Hispanics coming across. It's not Latinos coming across. You have everybody from Europeans
ridiculous.
to Muslims to Africans coming across that border. It's not just Hispanics. So I don't want you to think that I'm being...
And you know what?
Why can't they just be legal?
This is another thing about this legacy bullshit, all right? My legacy. Not only did he just, tell the border security to stand down, has Department of Homeland Security busted them in and put them in the system, advertising in Mexico to come over here, flying them in here from South America, flying them in from every Muslim country on the planet, but they just dumped 110,000 Africans in Minnesota. It's a total invasion of our country, and people, does any of those reporters at the press conference ask him about this or say, hey, how come you've gone against every campaign promise you made? I mean, every single one of them except for transforming this country into a third world crap hole?
Yeah. Scott's right about that. A whole bunch of South Africans have built themselves a little enclave up in St. Paul. And so much so that they've taken over the schools, they've taken over everything in St. Paul. And they were saying they're much more comfortable now that all these immigrants have shown up and they don't have to learn the language and they don't have to do anything. They have no intention of assimilating. What they're building is they're seeding an enclave there. We've talked about how Obama's breaking us off into tribal regions, and he really is. The South is going to be Hispanic, and the North along the Great Lakes is going to be all Muslims. The East and West Coast, he wants Muslims there too, but he'll mix them up. Doesn't want any Europeans. Definitely doesn't want any Christians.
Do you know why he wants to put them all in California and New York, basically? This is exactly what the Russian defector said, how communism was going to take over America. Because they're going to start in California and New York with these liberal psychopaths that are going to destroy your country from within. They'll start electing their own into office. They'll start changing your laws, and before you know it, they're going to become the majority, and capitalism isn't even going to go out with a bang.
Why would you take the most wonderful country ever in existence and try to damage it?
Well, George Soros gave us that answer. George Soros told us, in order for a new world order, American Israel's got to go bye-bye. And that's what they've done. They've taken it over now, and, it's like the global mafia has just stolen all the money from your business, which was our country, and now it's time to burn the place out. You light a match. Bust the joint out, as they used to say.
There's one funny thing about all this immigration, and, that poor girl that got murdered. That guy that murdered her, he'd been deported 5 times.
Oh, yeah. Nice,
He had 7 felony convictions. 7 felony convictions. And San Francisco said, no, we're not sending him back. We're a sanctuary city. So they didn't tell immigration. But even if they did, Customs and Immigration, since Obama has been there, has never asked for a detainee. They've never gotten a warrant to take somebody out of local custody and put them in federal custody yet in San Francisco. At least that's what the cops say. Now, the feds are firing back at San Francisco, and they're pointing a finger at the city for releasing the suspected killer. So that brings us down to who's he really pointing the finger at? Who's San Francisco? The mayor, Villarosa? How about Dianne Feinstein? She's their senator. How about Pelosi? She's their congresswoman. Kamala Harris, she is their attorney general. So who's he pointing the finger at? His whole team? He'll blame anybody but himself, even if he's got to blame Pelosi, who was the biggest suck up to him that there ever was. ICE briefly had him in their custody after he completed a prison sentence in California, but turned him over to San Francisco. But they got the nerve to blame San Francisco? ICE had them and handed them over to San Francisco on an outstanding warrant.
It's like Freedom Town in Scarface. Remember that? Go to Freedom Town. He got a green card. You stab a communist for a green card.
Yeah. And then you got Donald Trump, who says that, coming across that border are murders and rapists and drug dealers, and he's not wrong. And, they're going to tell you Donald Trump said all Mexicans are rapists. No, he didn't. He was listing some of the parade of horribles that were coming across the border, and rapists were some of them, yes. He did say some were rapists. He didn't say all. I mean, the next day, Obama practically backed him up. He's at some soiree, and he's giving a speech, and he said, well, there are gangbangers coming across that border, and they should be deported. All right, so you think gangbangers are really nice people? They're not doing murders and rapes and robberies and things like that? Of course they are. Of course they are. Kidnappings, all of it. 2 illegals were arrested as part of a 10-person team that raped an 11-year-old girl. They gang raped her, 11 of them. She ran away from one of those group homes. And they grabbed her and they raped her. 2 of them got arrested. The other 9 are still at large. They don't even know who they are. And the little girl's all messed up. I got to tell you something. Trump is making a whole lot of noise. And, he proved you can't please everybody, but pissing everyone off at the same time is a piece of cake. He talks about border security in China and Iran and Russia and all the things that everybody's going crazy about. But aren't those things important to talk about? Isn't it a welcome change from race and gender and Obamacare?
Well, you know what? I tell you what, I really don't usually like Ann Coulter. But the other day she was having a book signing and a bunch of, probably staged Soros illegal aliens where they're outraged and booing her and calling her names and disrupting her book signing. And she says, well, at least you're not out molesting 4-year-olds.
That's
so
a good
point. I tip my hat off to her for saying that.
Yeah, but then you got all these limp-wristed wimps who run and hide and say, oh, God, I don't believe she said that. If I got to hear one more soft-spoken politician like Lindsey Graham or any of the others, tiptoeing around, I like Donald Trump. Of all the people in the world that turns out being a good guy, it's Donald Trump. The guy's got more luggage than Samsonite. But they can't get him. He is a genius with contracts. When Bill de Blasio came out and said, well, I don't like what Donald had to say, okay, so Donald was using free speech. De Blasio said, we're going to have to rethink our contracts with him. Okay, so now you have the government going after a man's business because you don't like what he said. You're going to violate contracts. All of a sudden, Alan Dershowitz comes out, and anybody, you all know who Alan Dershowitz is, right? He's a big-time lawyer. He came out and said de Blasio put it in writing that he didn't like what Trump said. There was a whole transcript in writing, and that he's going to reevaluate contracts. Well, right there, that violates the Constitution, his First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments. It violates contract law, and this is going to cost the city of New York billions just in law costs and legal fees. Plus, that's not even counting what type of an award he's going to get because it's a cut-and-dry constitutional case. New Yorkers are going to be paying for this long after de Blasio is just a memory. All of a sudden, de Blasio shut up, didn't he? Same with Macy's. Macy's comes out, jumps on the PC bandwagon. Now, you can tell something else, too. Somebody very, very high echelon is putting the squeeze on some major corporations, Macy's, Serta, even NASCAR, over Trump. I didn't even know Trump had a NASCAR presence. He's everywhere. But Guy's got all those contracts. Go ahead and break the contract, and he'll do to you what he's doing to Univision. That's also a cut and dry.
And he could just be doing this for the lawsuits too. Who knows?
He could be doing it because he's Donald and he likes to do it. He gets
to sue CBS, I think, for $500 million.
Right.
That's easier than selling 4 buildings. I'll tell you that. Just one high-powered lawyer.
And then if they force him out of New York, you know how many people in New York he employs, including Mexicans?
They don't care.
You know what type of a footprint he has in New York? If he packed up his whole thing and moved out of New York would collapse.
No, it would. They have lost more billionaires and millionaires in New York over the last 10 years, in probably 100. They don't care. They're bankrupting our states as much as they're. It's like Puerto Rico.
Right.
Look at California. I mean, they don't care. They're running people out, busing illegals and flying in foreigners to take up the slack.
Well, there's money in that. They got a slush fund.
I think they want New York to be nothing but another Detroit someday. I think that's the plan.
Could be. It could be. Because, look at Detroit. Don't think it can't happen. And New Yorkers are usually pretty smart and pretty tough. But, I don't know when they all went squishy and turned into lily-livered liberals. I mean, I know that there was a lot of liberals, but, this is more than liberalism. This is like straight-up communism. Look at the crowds. Bernie Sanders is pulling in.
Yeah.
10,000. He could fill a stadium.
A little mad scientist
that should scare the stuffing out of us.
Socialist freakazoid, and he's like a rock star. I mean, that just shows you how sad this country is.
And then they pull the race card. They got Hillary, Sanders, and O'Malley. 3 stuffy old white people. And they want to say, all these racists over in the Republican Party and the Libertarians and all that. Nobody's racist but them. The KKK was Democrats. Margaret Sanger spoke at that Democrat KKK meeting. She invented the Negro Project.
Well, what about
Guevara? They run around
Wilson?
with Che Guevara shirts. He hated black people.
What about Woodrow Wilson, that Marxist, socialist, commie piece of crap?
1913,
that is the reason
the Federal Reserve
why
Act.
we are, it is a reason why we are in debt up to our eyeballs and going bankrupt. Wasn't he a big KKK supporter? I believe he was.
Yeah. And then you got Donald Trump out there. Now, maybe we're looking at it wrong. Maybe Donald Trump is the front man, and he's out there to change the national subject because, like I said, we talked about race and gender until you got to be glazing over by now. So maybe they are doing the team play, and he's gone out there and he's kicking butt, and they can't get to him. He's not taking donations. He's not sucking up to Soros and Koch brothers or anybody. He's not running around with a tin cup, and he's got every one of his contracts locked down solid, so you can't touch Trump. So he's pushing back, and he's the one to do it. Now, everybody's going to get mad at him, and they're going to say, he's a loser, and he's got luggage, and he's this, and he's that, and then he's over the top. And I'll tell you what he's doing is making really good waves. He's right now the front runner over all of them because people like strength.
To make waves, And
but people
like Ross
strength.
Perot did. They come out and it's amazing. You tell a little truth, and you're real popular because people get sick of lying, double-talking, backstabbing, spineless jellyfish.
Exactly. And that's what it is. Even the tough guys are still soft-spoken and nice and, whatever. Maybe a little street fight now and then, a little fire in your belly and a little oomph wouldn't hurt. Get out there. You want it, fight for it. And then you got people like Mitt Romney, who I absolutely respect. I think he's a very dignified, intelligent man. But he's out there giving advice on how to win elections. Huh? You lost 3. What do you mean you're going to win elections now all of a sudden? You're an authority.
Yeah.
He lost 3. He lost a primary and 2 presidential elections.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so,
like... That's
he might not be the authority on this.
That's like taking weight loss advice from Michael Moore.
Yeah, we'll get right on that. But still, don't get all crazy about Trump. Don't, start hating and talking trash about him and stuff. Just listen. Let him do what he's doing and see where it goes. Because I'm thinking maybe we're looking at it wrong, and maybe he's maybe he's absolutely being a team player and he's the front man. He's out there changing the subject, and he's doing it.
Deserves it.
Yeah, but he's doing it in a hard way. He's going full on. So maybe the others will say, well, we'll back it off a little. But we're still talking about immigration now, aren't we? Nobody's talking about race right now. Everybody's talking about immigration and that murder.
Sure they are. Sure they're talking about race. On everywhere you can say, Trump's a bigot. He doesn't like Mexicans. He thinks all Mexicans are rapists. So, they're talking about race. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Hillary's going off to give a speech at La Raza, too. You're right. I'm just, maybe they put the black people on the shelf then, and now it's the Mexicans'
Right,
time.
there you go. They just had to pivot to the Mexicans.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
They've talked about them for a while. They just rotate. Black, Mexican, Muslim. Black, Mexican, Muslim.
Yep, race, gender. Obamacare, black, Mexican.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Muslim.
I forgot about the woman thing. I mean,
it's not just the woman thing.
It's technically a woman. Is
she?
Well, but she looks like Ed Asner in a pantsuit.
Who?
Hillary.
Oh, Hillary? I don't know, but we talked about Caitlyn Jenner for a long time too. That kind of burned me out. Hey, let's take a break, and when we get back, our guest Carol Ray might be here because Greece is the next subject coming up, and she's going to do a little short segment for us to let us know how this affects us. And then, boy, I got a whole bunch more stuff to talk to you about. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Go get a beverage, and Carol will be here soon. And hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, right here at Patriot Resistance Radio Network, or PRN as we usually call it around here. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me, too, and we're happy you stuck around. Thank you. Also with us is our very, very favorite, best, very own financial guru, Carol Ray. And she's called in. We're going to talk about Greece for a few minutes and what it means to all of us. So let me give her a proper hello. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carol Ray. Hey, Carol.
Hey, how are y'all?
Very good, honey. My goodness, what is going on with Greece? The banks are closed until at least Wednesday, most likely Friday. They voted no to austerity and the bailout, and the IMF is offering them deals. Russia's offering them deals. I don't even know where this is going to go, but I know that the stock market's all crazy about it, and everybody's got an opinion, but none of it seems to be coming down the way that, anybody wants it. I'm not so sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing for Greece. I know it's a bad thing for the European Union, though. So
right.
The floor is yours, my dear.
Well, what it is, there's two choices that Greece has. Either they can go with the EU, which they would do cash reforms on Greece, and all that was in articles today. And which means what I truly believe is the proposal that the communist Greek prime minister had written up in February and had sent in last week, which it means that they would have, the European Union would have complete control over the Greek banking system. The second one is the Greek prime minister went to the Russian International Forum and made agreement with Putin on I think it's called Gazprom.
Yes.
Pipeline, right. And also there was talk that Greece had been invited to join BRICS. So you've got two choices. Either you can go with BRICS or he can go with the European Union under certain sanctions.
Yep, you're right. Hey, do you know the vice president of the IMF is also the vice president of the BRICS Bank?
Oh, yes, very much so. And so is one of the vice president of the World Bank is also a Chinese guy who was appointed by the Chinese to be part of the BRICS Bank. So if people would just focus on certain things and all of this, they're all working together. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And with BRICS Bank having IMF representative, and then China having a representative from World Bank on BRICS, and all, so they're all working together.
Yeah, they're overlapping employees. So yes, they're three sides of the same coin, and they're all taking us to the same direction. It's the illusion of a choice.
They're taking us into what I call global communism. It's communism and capitalism combining. If both of y'all remember, we had discussed, I think it was last week, that Goldman Sachs had come up with the acronym for BRICS. So you've got Goldman Sachs involved, and then you've got J.P. Morgan is involved because they're connected to the United Nations.
Right.
And then, of course, we've got the meeting in September with the United Nations, which I truly believe they're going to announce, global governance. They're going to use the Millennium Development Goals to redistribute our wealth. And then, of course, we've got the FOMC meeting where I truly believe Yellen will raise the interest rates. Now, the reason why the stock market did not plummet today is because the rumor had got out there was a possibility Yellen would not raise the rates. And that's the reason why it did not go down as drastically as a lot of the investors were speculating last night, that we were going to have a really bad stock market day.
Wow. I think that what's going on, Merkel's a wreck over in Germany, because it's going to end up costing the Germans a lot of money for this bailout. The Greeks just said, we can't pay our debt and we have no intention on paying it.
Well, see, there was a report, I think it was, I'm just guessing at the date because I would have to go through my documents, but I'm just saying in 2011, the International Monetary Fund came out with a report and stated that Greece could not pay the debt back, but they kept loaning Greece money.
Right.
And if the report came out, then why did they keep loaning money? And it's in black and white. It's on the International Monetary Fund website that Greece could not pay their debt back, but yet they kept loaning money to them.
Yeah, and now they're talking about a write-down, too. So someone's going to pay for that write-down. If they say, okay, well, you can't pay us $1 billion, maybe you can give us $500 million, and we'll write off the rest. Well, who loses that other $500 million?
The creditors, the European Central Bank, all the banks that have loaned out money. You've got the countries like Cyprus and other countries that put their money into the little pocket. They'll lose. Even though Cyprus had stated Sunday when the voting was going on for the referendum that they would even be willing to give up their debt. They're part of the share of as a creditor. So, and now countries that were tied to the IMF austerity measures are hollering, well, you're doing it for Greece, why didn't you do it for us? So it's escalating. The perfect utopia is not working too well, to be honest with you. I mean, that's what they were planning on doing.
Yeah, well, we're looking at the collapse of socialism and communism, and people aren't even realizing what it is. I'm thinking that maybe Greece would be better off leaving the Union, the European Union, going back to their own gold standard currency, maybe devalue it a little to get back on their feet.
The fact that it would cause extreme inflation, and of course we know that Greece is in dire need. I mean, they're out of rice, sugar, and flour as it is now.
Yeah, well, the UN's talking about sending humanitarian aid over there.
Right, exactly. And have you ever heard of any, as the UN sending humanitarian to a country that is in financial dire need. They've never done this before. So, I mean, it's just really amazing, what's going on. And right now, like I said, there's only two choices. Either they can go back with the European Union with a proposal that the Greek Prime Minister made, where he would turn over the banking system to the European Central Bank, or either go with BRICS. And both of them are going to lead in the same thing. We are truly, truly heading into global communism. It's not collapsing. This is part of the system, because BRICS is going with the International Monetary Fund. I mean, it's clearly stated in documents and stuff that they are definitely supporting the International Monetary Fund. And as we
that's
said
another
earlier,
thing. Let's stop right there, because the International Monetary Fund is 74% supported by the United States. So if they bring in BRICS, BRICS now will be able to have higher voting power than the United States. We could even lose our veto power there if they bring in BRICS. Not only that, but if they bail out Greece and they do a write-down on the debt, the other countries like the Europeans and, the Asians and stuff, they'll suffer a little bit of a loss. But we're 74% invested in there. So America's going to take the biggest loss.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well,
I just
the
wanted to make that
International
point.
Monetary Fund gave an ultimatum I think it was June the 11th, in stating that the United States had till September the 15th to accept the China yuan into the system, or they would, as you said, lose their voting rights, as part of the International Monetary Fund system. And if people would look at the International Monetary Fund, it's connected to the World Bank and the United Nations. So there's a lot of things that are involved in this. But, as I feel, they're all working together into a global communist organization. Capitalism and communism is combining together. And I truly believe this was set for the plan, because Goldman Sachs altered the financial records of Greece in order for Greece to join the European Union in the first place. And Greece was already bankrupt.
Right. It's scary, but, we are absolutely headed into the global economy, and there's no way that a person like you or me can stop it.
No.
We have to get not just the people, but we have to get the politicians and everybody on board. And that's not going to happen, because these banks see a profit in combining. They'll shake off all the loose people, and then it's straight out from there.
The former World Bank president, Wolferson, stated to the Stanford Business, gave a lecture and said that China would be 80% and the United States would be 35%. The Millennium Development Goals that will be passed, I am positive, at the UN September meeting. That is the way they're going to redistribute our wealth. They're going to send it to underdevelopment countries like China, Brazil, all these, Africa, all these countries that are claiming they're underdevelopment, but they're forming their own little cliché and all.
Yeah,
but as
Leo Gerard's
they're all
been over.
combined together.
Leo Gerard's been over in Africa now for 6 years, putting this all together with them. So, so where do you see us going from here? What do you want to tell our listeners?
Well, one thing is, as we have talked about in the past, this isn't going to get any better, y'all. It's going to get far worse than what we can imagine. And as we have stated, to have something in your home to keep you off the streets, because I truly believe when Yellen raises the interest rates, this is going to cause us another possible Lehman moment. I'm hoping I'm wrong in my thoughts, but every indication leads this way. And then, of course,
they keep putting it off and putting it off, but she can only put it off until September, and then she has to raise the rates.
Right, she's got to raise it. I mean, it's at the very bottom now, 0. She has no other. She can't go any lower. She's got to go up. She's got to go up with it. And, that's some important things that people need to understand. I mean, there's a good possibility that, what is happening is going to lead us into collision course, and a lot of people are going to be hurt if they're not ready for this.
Yeah, well, you got to ask them, can you live on $66 a day until the ATMs run out? Because now you're not, those people in Greece are not
doing. I mean, Greece, the euro comes out to around $66 USD. So
right.
These people are living off of $66. And like I said, sugar, flour, and rice is already depleted. So, I mean, they have no, and then I had read an article a while ago, and I think you also had it posted on Facebook, where the Greek banks would possibly be closed till Friday. So people are being left. And also, I want to say this.
The ATMs are out of money, so they can't even get the $66
there are a lot
now.
of Greeks here in the United States. Matter of fact, there was a couple on their honeymoon in New York that their bank cards would not work, so they had to go to the Orthodox churches and to get money to live on until they could get back home. And they're saying their honeymoon now is nothing but a total nightmare. So, and there's other stories that are coming out about Greeks here, visiting, touring. They're cut off from any money supplies whatsoever.
Yeah, you can't even do a money transfer because they can't get into the bank to go get it anyhow.
Right, exactly.
So, all these Greek relatives over here. All right, Carol, we're going to have to cut this down a little. Just before you go, though, I want you to just tell our listeners what to expect and what they should be doing by September.
Okay, well, one thing is to have food in your home and water. I mean, there's a possibility. I would not want anybody out, in the streets like in Greece as it is. The two possibilities of the European Union and then BRICS, I'm still somewhat undecided on this. But I can tell y'all that we are definitely going into a digital type currency. Greece used Bitcoin. They started using Bitcoin. Bill Gates has totally supported this. He was at the SWIFT meeting in March where they talked about Bitcoin being part of our currency besides debit and credit cards. So, I mean, cash, people talk about, well, I'm putting cash up. Cash isn't going to help us if what I'm suspecting is going to happen. Like I said, the only thing that you can have is like food and water in your home. Try to be out as much debt as you can be because this is unknown territories. We have never had anything like this or have experienced our generations before. And they talk about the Great Depression. They're saying it's going to be worse than the Great Depression.
Yeah, well, in Greece, they're talking about a 45% haircut on deposits. That means if you got $100 in the bank, they're taking 45 of it.
Well, you remember Cyprus had the same thing. We had discussed this, I think, what was it, a year ago or a year and a half ago about the bank bail-ins or, where they confiscate money to try to save the banks. And, of course, as we had talked, the Bank of England and our own FDIC signed an agreement in 2012, December of 2012, to do the same thing. So
well, it's going to get rocky, my dear. It's going to get bad.
They're going to they're going to confiscate bank accounts and pensions and everything else to save the banks.
They're already doing that in Chicago. Up in Illinois, they're talking about taking pensions, and they've already done it in Detroit, so don't think it can't happen. It's already happening. Carol, I want to thank you.
Well, let me say one more thing, and then I'm going to let everybody go. Please watch the stock market. Please keep an eye on what's going on in the European Union because a lot of people don't realize this. We are connected to the European Union through the United Nations. What happens there will come across the ocean to us. So please keep a watch on all this.
Absolutely. Carol, I want to thank you so much for coming in tonight. And
I appreciate you on.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I love you and Scott very much. Y'all are very good friends.
And we love you too.
And I'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Thank you very much, Carol. Ladies and gentlemen, Carol Ray. She's
Bye-bye.
the best in the business. Bye-bye, Carol. Thank you. Hi. She's the best in the business, like I said. If anybody knows the financial market, it's her. All right. We've got a couple more minutes here. I want to do a couple more things that we have to discuss while we have everybody's attention. Germany. All right, they tell you all about the climate and the climate agenda in the UN and all of that. And Germany was one of the biggest promoters of it, with their wind and their hydrogen cars and all of that. Well, you know what Germany decided today? That they're going to keep their coal industry. They're not going to play this anymore. They realized that if they get rid of coal, they don't have the ability to run their electricity. So, wow. Why didn't we think of that? We've bankrupted coal. Now, Germany has said, well, we have carbon capture and we have zero emissions technology. We're just going to start using that. How many times have we suggested that we do that? Our own EPA is creating this carbon slush fund, this climate slush fund. And they're doing it on the backs of small businesses, big businesses, the whole United States economy. And they keep shoving this climate change down our throat, even though it's been proven that there is no climate change. The planet's been cooling, and that big ball of fire in the sky, the sun, that's pretty much why it gets warm and why the seasons change. The rotation of the Earth, the spin of the tilting of the axle, and the 9 volcanoes we have that are active as we speak in this world put out more carbon than all of mankind in the industrial age. So now they've decided that they're going to keep coal. Nobody's saying a word to them, Scott. It's okay if they do it. Why is it not okay that the United States, what's it like, 60% of our electric plants are run on coal. So they got rid of our coal mines, so now we're going to have to depend on Chinese coal. They're not getting rid of the coal plants, but they just got rid of coal.
That's what globalism is. It's destroying free market societies that are halfway free market, which we haven't been since about 80, and turning it into one big, socialist crap hole that the top 1%, 6 corporations control everything. It's just total totalitarianism, communism. There isn't a bit of capitalism in it. I mean, the only you can't have capitalism if it's not free market capitalism.
Right.
I mean, because then it's just corporatism.
That's
it's
right.
fascism. It's corporations in bed with governments, and that's what it is. It's worldwide fascism. But it doesn't matter what they call it. All it is the top 1% make all the decisions, poison our food. You have no choice on it. There's not even a fake election anymore. They start appointing presidents, which is about the same as what we have now. It's this dog and pony show where we pretend, that you're, this illusion of choice.
Mhm.
So
absolutely,
I don't know.
Remember how many times we've talked about how the banks are getting shaken down and they're just paying, restitution, but nobody goes to jail? And how many times have we said, look, Holder worked for Covington and Burling. Half of the DOJ worked for law firms like Mackenzie Baker and Perkins and Coie and all of them. Well, there was a big article today that Holder is returning to Covington and Burling. And this is from The Intercept. It says, after failing to criminally prosecute any of the financial firms responsible for the market collapse in 2008, former Attorney General Eric Holder is returning to Covington and Burling, a corporate law firm known for serving Wall Street clients. It says their client list include 4 of the largest banks, including Bank of America, Citigroup, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo. Lobbying records show that Wells Fargo is still a client of Covington and Burling and recently represented Citigroup over a civil lawsuit relating to the bank's role in the Libra manipulation. I don't know if you know about the Libra manipulation, but all the banks in the world had to admit that they were manipulating the currency. So nobody went to jail for that.
It's a global mafia, and they hide behind these banks like they're upstanding businessmen, but they're just a bunch of crooks. That's all they are.
Oh yeah.
In Iceland and Greece are basically the same thing. When Iceland found out, what do you mean we're in all this debt? Well, let's look at what the debt really is. They found out that 93% of it wasn't even their debt. It was just made up debt. That the government was signing them on to. And this is Greece too. Yeah, and ours too. I mean, that's what I mean. These companies get in bed with the governments, which is fascism, and then they say, hey, you're in debt, and if you don't bail us out, your country's going to implode, and there's going to be martial law, when 93% of it isn't even ours. And that's how they do it. And then they loan you money, and it's worse than MasterCard. You can't pay $3,000. Oh, well, you know what? You maxed out your card. We're going to have to up your interest rate now to 21%.
Right.
So it can never be paid back.
That's called
slavery.
slavery.
Iceland, unfortunately, Iceland is only about the size of Omaha, Nebraska, but they jailed all those crooked bankers. They told them to stuff their debt up there. You know what? And they're doing pretty well right now. And if every country followed suit to that, we'd all be out of problem. I wouldn't pay anybody back. I'd say, you know what? Stick your Federal Reserve where the sun don't shine. We're going to print our own money from here on out, and we're going to back it with something real. And
we've already given you enough an interest rate to cover the debt 10 times over, too. But also, Covington was deeply involved with the company known as MERS, which was later responsible for falsifying mortgage documents on an industrial scale. Covington, in the 90s, provided legal opinion letters needed to create that MERS on behalf of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, and several other large banks, too. And he not only failed to pursue criminal prosecution of the banks for the mortgage meltdown, but in fact deprioritized investigations of mortgage fraud, too. That's how Franklin Raines got away with it, and that's why he's working for Hillary right now. Hey, I got a story that's going to blow you away, guys. I saw this yesterday. It came out from Breitbart. It says there was a secret White House gay wedding. Okay, I got a question about this. How is anything in that White House a secret? Listen to the story, and then I got details for you. Hold on. Let me tell the story first, and then we're going to get into some of these details, because this is the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard in my life. Before the White House was bathed in a rainbow light to celebrate the Supreme Court's decision to legalize gay marriage nationwide, a secret gay wedding was conducted in the building by former Obama speechwriter John Lovett. Lovett, who worked for Obama during his first term, reveals that he used his White House privilege to sneak in a pair of gay men under the guise of giving them a tour, then performed a wedding ceremony in the Rose Garden without the knowledge of the president. We were very nervous. They were nervous because they were getting married. I was nervous because I snuck into the boss's house to perform a wedding against his wishes in his backyard, he said. You can say what you will about the first same-sex marriage at the White House. At the very least, it was quite rude. Lovett revealed the secret wedding of Justin and Steve during Aspen Ideas Festival feature of the Moth Radio Hour podcast over the weekend, according to Mike Allen's playbook. The episode hadn't been aired publicly yet. After the ceremony, Lovett says the gay men kissed modestly, and he filed the paperwork with the address 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the official evidence that the ceremony took place. All right, that's the story. Now I got to tell you something. Lovett was a speechwriter for Obama, and then he went to CNN, and now he's working at HBO, so he's the media. How does this man still have the ability to walk into the White House, waltz into the Rose Garden, marry a couple, use the address 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on a legal document, and it was a secret and nobody noticed and he didn't have permission? Is anybody going to buy that story?
Why do we care?
Because it's all BS. It's telling you what's going on at that White House. They're running it like Animal House. If a guy who worked there during Obama's first term, which was 5 years ago, all right, he's still got the ability to waltz into that White House and bring people with him. Plus, now he works for media, HBO. and he could just waltz around the White House. And he could perform a marriage, and nobody in the White House noticed that. You got to be out of your mind. Nothing goes unnoticed in that White House. He damn well had permission, and if he didn't, how dare he use the address 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on a legal document? I don't give a damn if that couple got married.
Yeah, you know what? They got a new story to argue about and talk about for the next 2 weeks that nobody cares about. Awesome. It's
right,
man-made news once again.
Yeah, well, they're going to try it with the gay thing. It has nothing to do with gay. It has everything to do with protocol. And who is this? And how did he get in the White House? And how come nobody noticed if that story's true? Nothing about that story is true. That was allowed. It was the first gay marriage. It was a kick in your face. And half the country objected to it, and that was a ha-ha in your face. And that legal document has 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on it, so tough snoogies for you guys. That's what that was. It was not the guy snuck in and then call it the boss's house in the boss's backyard. No, he didn't sneak in. Every bit of that was arranged and approved. You don't just walk in the White House.
Are you sure Barack and Mooch just didn't redo their vows the right way this time?
No.
Positive?
Let's talk about Hillary now. I just wanted to get that off my chest because it's a bunch of hooey. Hillary's finally going to talk to a CNN reporter. Her name is Brian Keilar, Keilar. She's from CNN. And she had the biggest interview of the year, the first national interview with Hillary Clinton, right? Well, even that's fake, okay? She was spotted 2 weeks ago at the wedding of a prominent member of the Clinton campaign. The story says Keeler, along with another CNN and national political reporter who cover Clinton and the 2016 race, attended the wedding of Adam Parkamenko, and he's the director for the grassroots engagement for Clinton's presidential campaign. He's the co-founder of Ready for Hillary, and he married Kirby Hogue, also a former Ready for Hillary staff member. So here's this CNN reporter, so close to these people that she's invited to this wedding, and she just miraculously got the first interview with Hillary Clinton. The rest of them were rope-a-dopes. Let's talk about rope-a-dopes and what Hillary did. She was at a parade on Sunday, and she had her guys rope off the media like animals. Maybe not even like, it looked like they were being paraded through the streets and marched off to the slave auction. They were roped and corralled. Only one got away. What's his name? Chris Matthews. He was walking up the front with Hillary. So they didn't have to lasso him. I guess he's a runaway slave or something. But can you imagine the humiliation that these people allowed themselves? I would have got out of that rope and walked away and say, honey, you need me more than I need you, all right? You're running for president. You need the attention. You need the media. The media, you know, there'll be another candidate down the road. They can go and sit with, I don't know, Jeb Bush. Cover him. But to put these people in public, on a street, in a parade, and have them roped and corralled in, and these people have no self-respect whatsoever. What kind of optics is that? Here we are talking about slavery and the Confederate flag and everything else, and she's marching humans through the street like a slave auction. Anybody see the optics of that? Though, you know, nothing is an accident. Somebody had a plan to get a rope, right? They knew what those optics would be. That's another in-your-face thing. Ha-ha. You are nothing but farm animals and livestock. And I'll treat you any way I want to treat you. And you'll do it, and you will like it, and you will shut your mouth. I'm the boss lady.
Pretty much.
That's what that was.
You know, we're under a dictatorship, and you better get used to it.
All right, now I'm going to flip Scott out. Ladies and gentlemen, block your ears because I'm going to flip out Scott. And sometimes he can't be nice. He's not going to be able to be nice when I tell him this story. John Boehner was in Ireland pledging immigration reform at the top of his agenda. This is from the Irish Times. U.S. House Speaker says he's determined to overcome Republican resistance to reform. Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, John Boehner, has told a Dublin audience of his determination to overcome Republican resistance to immigration reform. Mr. Boehner also told how Taoiseach Enda Kenny has harangued him on the matter, telling him how the lack of reform has left some Irish immigrants listening to a parent's funeral by phone. His remarks indicate he may yet move to confront opponents of reform within his own Republican Party, which is in the vanguard of resistance to it and has a majority in the House. The Speaker, second in line for the U.S. presidency after Joe Biden, was addressing the Independence Day lunch of the American Chamber of Commerce, Ireland. Although he has consistently refused to put immigration reform to a House vote, he has said certain colleagues thought the matter would be resolved by sticking their heads in the sand. It doesn't work that way. So he's saying that he's going to overcome. As a matter of fact, he says that he was talking about this guy, Taoiseach, and he said that Taoiseach says, John, how's immigration reform coming? And Boehner replied, what the hell do you care about immigration reform? And Mr. Kenny said, oh, John, don't you realize there are about 50,000 of my fellow Irishmen came to the United States and never quite made it back across the pond? You know, their cousins have got to hold up the cell phone at the parents' funeral so the kids in Chicago or Detroit or wherever can listen to the funeral. John, this is a serious problem. So last Thursday when they met, Mr. Kenny's message was concise. Just get it done. So here's John Boehner. What's he doing over there? Independence Day, celebrating in Ireland. Talking to the Irish about immigration reform, but he would never say those words here.
Yeah, well, that's what they do. He probably got a free keg of beer or something if he came there, and that's why he went. I mean, I don't know. He's a raging alcoholic. I got to tell you, I'm proud of you. Spineless puke.
Well, but, you handled this very well. I was expecting an outburst from you.
No.
Yep, he flew to Ireland on Independence Day weekend. Who paid for the cross-pond pandering, puts immigration on the top of his agenda, determined to overcome Republican resistance. He has an F rating on Conservative Review scorecard.
Yeah, these people like him, they are told we can indict a ham sandwich. Everybody in D.C. has broken 100 different federal laws, and if you do what we tell you to do and you vote the way we want you to vote, we don't indict you. And if you don't, and you even talk about us making the wrong decision, like Menendez, who should have been indicted for, child prostitution in other countries, well, if you talk bad against a policy of Iran, you're indicted on something. Well, they're all guilty.
Yeah.
They make them guilty so that they got room to blackmail them all.
Yeah, well, Boehner had an opportunity to not fund the illegal amnesty, and it got funded.
Well, look what Obama does.
Usually I don't think much about Boehner.
Obama goes around and talks about people having borders and culture, and how you got a right to defend your border. And then he just the opposite of here. I mean, it's just that's what it is. It's a world of hypocrites.
Yeah, well, you know what else too? Speaking of illegals, 500,000 illegals got Social Security numbers, and this is dated March 12th, and it says Jeff Sessions asked the Social Security Administration how many individuals have applied for Social Security numbers as a result of the June 15, 2012 memorandum issued by DHS Napolitano entitled Exercising Prosecutorial Discretion with Respects to Individuals Who Came to the United States as Children. The response that he just received April 10th this year says by the end of fiscal year 2014, we had issued approximately 541,000 original Social Security numbers to individuals authorized to work under the 2012 Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So, he gave them all Social Security numbers, and that makes them eligible for every benefit. These are equivalent to.
That's actually good, because the minute they're a full-fledged legalized citizen, then they'll be treated like crap, just like all the rest of us. Then nobody's
right now,
complaining about all these illegals getting everything. And
well, they said
being able to
80%
murder
of them
people.
are on 80% of them are on some sort of a benefit, and the other 20% make approximately minimum wage. There's not too many of them making a bunch of money, so this makes them eligible for $6,242 just in an income tax credit, the refund.
Yeah, I heard a tornado hit one of their houses the other day, killed all 400 people.
Oh my God, that's not
Get it?
nice.
Get it? The joke.
I know. You know, and then Jeff Sessions says that when he held that subcommittee meeting in March, he discovered a $1.3 billion slush fund and lots of nefarious actions with the money.
Oops. Yeah, and nothing will happen, you know.
Yeah, it says
Oops.
they've accumulated a reserve fund of unexpended revenues that now total $1.2 billion. And the agency has a policy to maintain a reserve balance of $600 million to help it manage in the event of revenue fluctuations. But they're using the funds to launch the new executive amnesty programs without any statutory authority. They already spent $11 million getting ready for the new executive amnesty until it was blocked by the judge in February. About $7 million was spent to lease office space in Crystal City, Virginia, and those rent payments still need to be made whether the program goes forward or not. So the total cost of processing the facility alone is estimated to be $26.2 million that they spent before they even had the authority. You know, they had hired one or two people to work on the program and made job offers to 360. Well, how the hell did you spend $26.2 million and only hired two people?
Well, they could
And then
do that
Senator
in
Cruz, he
Africa.
comes up, he's got a bill now. He's going to eliminate the offsetting accounts that are currently available. Well, you think Obama's going to sign that?
No.
Right.
It's all just for show. Pretend like he's doing something.
Yeah, and also, in addition, that fund goes to extend humanitarian protection to refugees, both within and outside of the United States. So who gives them the authority to spend that money on these things that are not even legal? These people are not legal. These programs are not legal. They were told to cease and desist. They're still accumulating money, and they're spending it on refugees overseas? What? Shouldn't it go back in the Treasury? And we wonder why we're broke. That's a lot of money.
We don't
You could do a lot of cleaning up Honduras or El Salvador or any one of these countries.
The goal is to break us. The goal is to destroy our economy. I mean, you destroy an economy, you destroy the currency, and everything goes bankrupt, and everything goes to crap. And when the smoke clears, they could come in and buy a building for pennies on the dollar. It worked in 1929. It's going to work again. That whole thing was all fabricated collapse, just like this.
Yeah, well, like Carol said, and I've never been more sincere. We've told people to prep for a long time now. And actually, if you had done it, you would realize just how much things have upped in price. I mean, a pound of bacon now weighs 12 ounces, by the way. Did you notice that? Everything's being downsized, but it's the same price. So if, look at the price of chicken, $4 a pound for chicken breast. You can't even touch a steak now. A steak is $8.99 for a piece of steak, for a pound of steak. So had you prepped before, you would be doing a little bit better now. Just restocking, you know what the price costs. And I'm telling you now, guys, by September, prices are going to increase in the triple digits. If you paid $5 for something now, you're going to pay $10 for it in September. So I would suggest that you put up some cash, like she said. Every time you got an extra dollar, throw it in a jar. Make sure you have cash on hand, because what are you going to do if they decide to close the banks and you haven't made it to the bank yet? And then you get to an ATM machine and there's a line down the street and around the corner, and by the time you get to that ATM machine, there is no money in that machine. So you go to another one and the same thing happens. And then when those ATM machines run out, nobody's getting the $66 per day that's allotted. There is none. And don't think it can't happen here. It's happening in front of you. Greece is the indicator. And you know that meeting is coming up in September. September 25th is the actual meeting. September 23rd, they start doing all their pulling it together, the G7. Just, add that to everything from the Star of Bethlehem to the four blood moons to the Shemitah to the trumpets. And then you got the Pope coming on the 25th to talk in front of the UN. So, there's a lot of things happening, and you got Greece falling, and you got the whole European Union in an uproar. Everybody's taking a haircut. We're the biggest contributors to the UN, to the IMF, to the Bank for International Settlements, for the Import-Export Bank. So we're getting a haircut big time. And we just keep pouring money into it. We need to stop that. But it's not going to stop. So all you can do is take care of yourself. And please, if you got a family and everything, make sure you got a gallon of water for everybody per day. And you got to have at least 6 weeks' worth of supplies for yourself and your family and your pets. So start working on that. $1 at a time if you got to. Go ahead, Scott.
I just hate how they rebrand things so they don't sound as bad. The Patriot Act, the Affordable Care Act, a haircut.
Yeah,
a haircut is called decapitation.
Yeah, haircut. Sounds like you're going down the barbers and get a $10 haircut, huh? No, you're going to lose 45% of your total deposits. Yeah, you're going to be
scalping. All right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And like Carol said, watch Greece, folks.
People have to get pissed. Yeah, Greece and then Spain and Italy. But, people have got to get pissed. They got to do more than just stomp around the street and whine. They got to do more than carry signs and yell, "We're mad as hell, we're not going to take it anymore." You got to storm the castle.
Yeah, well,
right?
I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Remember in the old movies, what did they do? When Frankenstein and Dr. Frankenstein were held up at the mansion, what did they do? Did the townspeople go to the mansion and walk around with signs and scream, "Hell no, we won't go"? And impeach Dr. Frankenstein now. Did they? No, they didn't.
No, you got to storm the
castle. No, they carried torches and they carried pitchforks. That's what they did.
Yeah. Well, I don't see a Braveheart moment in our future.
Well,
we're going to say goodnight to everybody.
You're going to have a Third Reich moment in your future then. Okay?
Yeah, I know.
So it's either or. Yep. Good night, everybody.
Told you I'd piss them off. Guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Get ready to rock us out, my friend. We hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening or called in or who's in our chat rooms, thank you so much. To our guest, Carol Ray, thank you. A special thank you to my wonderful colleagues, and a very special thank you to my cool co-host, Scott. Stay tuned to PRN all week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow night,